Welcome
Good
to
morning.
the second Lafora talk show. We're so excited. We are streaming now live on Lafora, everybody. So let's get started. I want to welcome Brian and Marvin today. They are our guests on the Lafora talk show. Welcome to Marvin and Brian. And then we also have Jean joining us, and Jean is going to be chiming in and joining the conversation. We want the Lafora talk show to be a conversation. This is not a formal chat. This is not a formal talk show. This is a conversation. This is Laforans helping other Laforans. So let's get started. The first thing to say is that the purpose of the Lafora talk show is to help you, to help the Laforans. So many of you spend so many months, years, hours worrying about your getting to America, worrying about the NCLEX, the IELTS, the immigration, all the delays that have happened, and you have to have a lot of patience. It can be very frustrating, make you feel very despondent, but very few Laforans actually think or worry about what happens when you get to America. And as Brian and Marvin and Jean will tell you, there are a lot of wonderful things that will happen when you get here, but there also are some challenges. So the purpose of the Lafora talk show is to help you, is to serve you, so that you can hear from other Laforans that have gone through this experience, and you can be prepared. I think especially right now at this time of COVID-19, a lot of people are feeling very exhausted, both emotionally and physically exhausted. There's a lot of challenges, and the Lafora talk show is intended to spread some light and to uplift you and to give you knowledge, because knowledge is power. I'm a big follower of Oprah, and Oprah says, surround yourself with people who lift you up. So today, Marvin, Brian, and Jean are going to be lifting you up. Okay.
Hopefully we can.
Sorry, what do you say, Jean?
Hopefully we can.
Yes. So I see everyone who's watching, please let us know where you are, who you are, and where you're watching from. And please share this with your friends and your colleagues. We want to spread the word. So we see Ryan is watching, Shirley is watching, Jenalyn, Opo, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Chris is watching from New Guinea. Dindin from Qatar, Neri from Singapore, Fräulein, I know Fräulein, hi Fräulein, Milanis is watching, Melanie's watching, Renz, I know Renz too, Jonah, Sarah, Ricardo, and thank you for tagging your friends, and please keep tagging your friends so that we can spread the word and we can uplift everybody. Okay, so let's get started. Marvin and Brian are going to be sharing their stories today. I love your background, Marvin.
Yeah, it's like the Philippines, like with the background and the red one. So it represents the flag. So I'm still a Filipino wherever I go. So
absolutely, and I can so relate. I came to America on the 4th of July. I always thought it was very significant on Independence Day. I came to America, and I came from South Africa, and I always have South African heart, so I can relate. So let's start with the first question. Marvin and Brian, maybe Marvin, you can start us off and tell us about your journey. Tell us about the journey of coming to the US, what that was like for you, how long it took you, what your experience was like until you got to the US.
Okay, so hi to all the foreign family, wherever you are in the world. Hi, marhaba to all those Middle East nurses. Mayang gabi, magandang umaga. So again, my name is Marvin. So I was born and raised in Zamboanga City. So I've been a nurse for like 15 years, and my expertise includes emergency, trauma, and also I'm a midwife in the Philippines. I also did some clinical instructor there. So I passed my local boards 2005, the year after I passed my NCLEX. So with my agency, I was promised that I'll be in America within that year, because like visas were just given out like hotcakes. But then the unfortunate happened, retrogression. So we were like doom. And then all we thought that retrogression will be lifted the following year, but not. And then the next year, the next year, the next year, I was frustrated and it went up to 8 long years. So
Wow.
with that 8 long years, I did some odd jobs. So I was um, doing clinical instructor with no clinical experience. So having that, I I did some volunteer work after my clinical instructor job, and then I did some contractual jobs. But I felt the pressure of not providing enough to my family. So I felt the need, like, yeah, I know retrogression will be longer. So I was praying that one day it will be lifted. But it pushed me to go to the Middle East. So I worked in the Middle East for 2 years, and I used that experience to adapt myself with the US. I was very fortunate about my Middle East experience because like we were dealing with American trained doctors. Most of them are from New York, most of them are from California, and then they're very inspiring. So with those 8 long years, I know it's very, very long. 2014, when I received my visa, it was a glorifying moment. It was like, oh my God, my dream starts to unfold. So I was interviewed in Abu Dhabi. I was well prepared, went home, I resigned, went home and spent Christmas. And I was like very high and I was expecting a lot because like my American dream starts to unfold. And then right now I'm here. So I told myself that I was very, very thankful that I was able to use my time well, spending time with my family. But to be honest with you, those 8 long years of retrogression, several retrogression, was very, very frustrating. I almost gave up. And then I told myself, let me go to UK, or let me go to Europe, let me go to, or stay in the Middle East. But again, I was like focusing myself to fulfill my American dream. So that was my journey.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that, Marvin. Very, I think that's a story that many Laforans can relate to,
Yes.
because it's taken such a long time. There've been so many obstacles and barriers, and you probably just never ever thought you would get here.
Yes, exactly. So I never
Yeah.
thought, but I was very prayerful. I was responsive to my agency. I keep asking questions, and then I was trying to do some timelines. I enjoyed those. I enjoyed the process, although it takes very, very long time. But as what my parents was said, good things will happen for those who wait. So I was patiently waiting, and here I am enjoying the perks of it.
Okay. Patience. Patience
Yeah,
is the
exactly.
answer. Brian, what about you? Can you share your story with everybody?
I think my story is kind of like the same with Sir Marvin here because you graduated in 2005, I graduated in 2006. But the thing is that with my case, I think it's worse because in 2006, I
Yeah.
think most of you guys will remember we had the leakage issue back then. So I have to take the local board exams twice.
Oh
So
my
on the
goodness.
same year, yeah, on the same year, I took the board exam in June, pass it in August, then have to retake it on October, then I have to take the NCLEX on December. So that 2006 was one hell of a ride for all of us. And then 2007, 2008, I think the 9/11 thing happened, so the retrogression happened. So it's kind of like I waited from 2006 being a USRN, and then my visa was granted 2019.
Wow, that was way,
Wow.
way too long.
Because I just got here in the States last year. So while
Oh,
waiting for those moments, just like Sir Marvin, I did some odd jobs as well. So I went into call center. I went to teach nursing without experience as well, because we got no choice. So
yeah,
you have to
exactly.
make ends meet because there were so many nursing graduates. Because most of the nursing graduates back then, the purpose of which is to go to the state. Then again, the door closed. So we got backlogged. So there were so many supplies, but not much demand. And I don't want to do into volunteer job and so on and so forth. So just like what Sir Marvin did, I did clinical instructorship. I did review lecture without without experience as well. And then in 2015, UK opened, UK and Ireland opened. So what I remember is that I applied for Ireland in 2015 August, and I was able to get there November. So August, September, October, just 4 months, 4 months processing. to UK. It was really, really fast.
That was quick.
And that was by the time I was waiting, because I thought that going here in the States would not be possible for me anymore. So I did work in Ireland for, I think, roughly less than 3 years. Now in 2019, my agency surprisingly contacted me again through email, because of course my phone number would be different now. I was in Ireland. So she contacted me through email and said, Brian, your papers are now moving forward. So imagine, that was from 2006 to 2019. I was really surprised that they're still in touch with me. So so I went forward. Well, half-heartedly, I went forward because I was really happy in Ireland that time. I thought I won't go to US, but then again, I don't want to tell myself regretfully saying, what if I did go to the US, and what if life would be different there? So I just jumped ship, because I already have a life in Ireland, but I have to make a decision because I'm already there. My papers are already there. I just have to say yes, sign some papers, pay some fees and all. So I did. So here I am, 2019 to 2020. It was hard. It was difficult. It was tough. I started out without experience, but then again, I think most of the people back home are in my situation. Until now, they don't have some experiences. And I was asking in the fora, what happened to those people who don't have experience, but they graduated, they are licensed, and all, but they don't have experience. Is it possible for them to get here? And I was gathering some information, and yes, they could. They could go here. They could work here without experience. Of course, they have to pull a lot of strings. They have to be more resourceful than anyone else. But hey, that's how it is. I mean, you want a good life, you have to work.
Okay. So both of you have had that experience of working in the Philippines, working in other countries, different countries, but other countries outside of the Philippines, and then coming to the US. What would you say is the biggest difference from a clinical perspective, working in the US as opposed to Brian maybe working in Ireland, or Marvin in where were you, in the UAE or Saudi? Did you say the UAE or Saudi?
UAE, United Arab Emirates.
Yeah. So what would you say were the biggest differences from a clinical perspective?
Okay. So based from my experience in United Arab Emirates, so actually the technology and the processes that we have there is almost the same in a lot of degrees here in the US. So we follow the same STEMI protocol, we followed the same code stroke protocol. We have the technologies like the iStat, we're using it there. And then when I came here to the US, I've been using it, allow response and all that. Their technologies are at par. And then I am very much thankful and grateful for the experience, because I am exposed to different doctors coming from different nationalities. So like American doctors, British doctors, South African doctors, Korean nurses, there were a lot of expats working in the medical field. So I was exposed to them. I was able to learn their culture. And now, aside from that, some differences, but this may not be clinical. So that includes culture and the language. So I can still remember when I was in Texas. So I was actually working in Texas for 4 years. I was assigned in Northeast Texas. Hi to the to people in Tyler. So the difference is about the culture is that especially the Southern hospitality, especially some words, like for example, the brain. So actually the brain is like a paper where the nurses will write their endorsement and all that. So one time the preceptor was asking, hey, where's your brain? Get it. So we thought that it was an insult, but actually it was not. So yeah, those are one of the differences. The second one is most of the things here in the US is outcome driven. So it's more on like patient's outcome improves or patient really survives compared to when we work in the Philippines, because of there's less resources, and also when in the Middle East, if they stop, that's it, done, kalas. And then lastly, here, nurses are empowered. They are great advocates. So I never expected this type of spirit that will bestow once you become an American nurse. Because in the Philippines and in the Middle East, we work under the supervision of the doctors and all that. Here, it's a different thing. We are working together with them. Nurses are empowered, nurses are an advocate. We can actually speak to the doctor. We speak about the patient's rights. So those are the things that I think the difference are. But the most important thing is that nurses here in the US are empowered, advocated, respected, particularly respected in a lot of ways. Um, I still can remember when I was in the Philippines, I was a contractual employee, no work, no pay, no PTO, no nothing like that. Um, if we have holidays, we don't have any work, then you won't earn anything. But here, you enjoy these benefits. I mean, nurses here are truly respected and empowered. So that's the best thing about being here.
Okay, wow. Well, that really tells a lot, because it's not just the clinical difference, but just the cultural difference, which
Yes.
can be a big adjustment, especially for a lot of, I think for a lot of Filipinos when they come in the beginning, because a lot of Filipinos typically tend to be more shy,
Yeah. So,
right?
yeah, to be honest with you, I have to share one funny story. During my first week in Texas, so every time that I talk to the patient, and before I leave the room, I always tell them like, "Hey, can I get you anything? Is there anything that I can do for you before I leave the room?" And the patient said, "Oh, sir, can you get me Dr. Pepper? Dr. Pepper." So we don't have Dr. Peppers in the Philippines and in the Middle East. So I went to the secretary's desk. I was browsing all the directory looking for pepper. Is it the first name or the last name? So I was there for about 10 minutes, and then the secretary was asking, "Hey, Marvin, what are you looking?" And then he said, "Oh, I'm looking for Dr. Pepper." I said, like, "Seriously?" I said, like, "Yeah, I was looking for Dr. Pepper. Do we have a doctor named Dr. Pepper?" I said, like, "Go to the fridge." "Oh, is she there?" I said, like, "Oh, no." I said, "Marvin, just go there and look." And then when I opened the fridge, God damn, I was dumbfounded. And it was like shocking. It was Dr. Pepper drink. I said, like, "Oh my God." And then everyone was laughing. So every time that I see Dr. Pepper right now, it reminds me about about that incident, and it will always make me smile. That at least I was so innocent about that, thinking that I was doing it right, but but I was able to integrate to the community with that funny story.
That is such a funny story. Oh my God, Jean, do you have any funny stories like that where you misunderstood what somebody said when they first arrived here?
I don't think I remember anything. Something like that. I don't have experience like that.
Brian,
But
do
that's
you have any funny
interesting.
stories like that? The Dr. Pepper one, that's a good one.
Well, no, not that one, but that one is good. Yeah. But the thing is that I don't know Dr. Pepper before I got in here as well. And a lot of people are asking for that. I think it's more famous than Coca-Cola here, Dr.
Yeah, in
Dr.
Pepper.
Texas,
Pepper,
yes, it
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Well, just to share, the one funny thing is, as I said, I come from South Africa, and the weirdest thing with Dr. Pepper, I don't know why, my husband, every time he would go to a restaurant and he would order a Diet Coke, they would say, "Oh, a Dr. Pepper." And I'm like, it didn't even sound anything like Dr. Pepper. But to the American ear, somehow with the South African accent, they thought he was saying Dr. Pepper. So sometimes we all have our Dr. Pepper stories, right?
Yeah, exactly,
I think that's
exactly.
more famous right
Yeah,
here because the company is, or I
it's in
don't know if
Texas.
that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
company is originated here.
yeah, in
So they're
Waco,
more,
Texas.
Yes.
and Texans are
So,
very, a very strong advocate of their brands.
Yes.
They're very like nationalistic with their own state, if you could put it that way. It's like that they love their state so much, and
yeah,
they say
that's
that they
true.
could stand alone as their own country, which I believe. Yeah.
Yeah,
Where
that
are
is
you
very
located,
true.
Brian?
Sorry?
Hmm?
Where are you located, Brian, right now? It's so windy in your area.
I'm here in the West.
Which
Oh,
part?
okay.
Hmm.
It
Where
looks
the
like
Are
a
you
Orioles
nice
are.
garden behind you,
are you
Brian.
in Odessa?
Huh?
Are
Yeah,
you
nearby
in
Odessa, but I'm
Oh,
in the
okay,
rural
because
area. Mhm.
I'm in Tyler, which is like opposite to you guys. I was in Tyler. I
Uh,
was
wha-
assigned in Tyler.
one of my co-nurses here work in Tyler, so I know the place. I haven't been there, but she's been telling me stories about that.
Yeah.
So I've never
Oh,
been to Tyler. Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Lot of Filipinos there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And Brian, tell us about the difference from a clinical perspective that you experienced from in Philippines as opposed to Ireland, as opposed to the US.
I think the clinical and the cultural thing goes hand in hand, because I agree with what Sir Marvin said, with what Marvin said, that nurses outside the Philippines are more empowered. Because when I was in Ireland, I remember I was calling my chief nurse. Her name is Siobhan, so I was calling her Ma'am Siobhan, and then she looked at me like livid look, because she thought I was insulting her. Because outside the Philippines, ma'am and sir would mean that you're referring to elderlies. Like in the Philippines, ma'am and sir is kind of like the usual thing. So outside the Philippines, calling someone ma'am and sir would be referring to the elderly. So they would prefer to be called by their first names. And surprisingly, even for the doctors, they don't want to be referred. When I was in Ireland, they don't want to be referred as, let's say, Dr. Smith or Dr. whatever. They want to be referred in their first name. So you're working with them as equals and they're not your superiors. And that's how I felt here in the States as well. Because just like what Marvin said, you're more empowered. And with that empowerment, just like what Spider-Man's stepdad said, it comes with more responsibility. Because back in the Philippines, since you have a lot of superiors, you tend to move with how your superior would tell you to move. Like do this and do that. You have your task. Here in the States, and maybe outside the Philippines, you're more of goal-oriented, which means that you really have to employ your nursing care plan. You assess, you diagnose, you plan, and then you evaluate. Because all of those are part of handover, especially if you're working in critical care and if you're taking care of your patients for a long time. They won't just, when they're listening to you, they would want to listen the story from top to bottom, and that's every time. So here you're more empowered with the sense that you are thinking separately from the doctor, because you're not just taking care of them, making their lives better. You're actually helping them to go back to their pre-illness state or to go back to where they were before they were hospitalized. And that's, I guess, part of being empowered, because you're thinking more here. That's why there's a lot of continuing education mandated here rather than when I was back home. Because when I was back home, I was working in one of the prestigious private hospitals in Makati. We don't have that much continuing education here. We have it every single month, and it's mandatory. And it's helping us speak up to the doctors, because when the doctor asks you some things, you could actually answer back. And that builds up their trust in you that, hey, I could actually let my patients with this nurse, and what he actually says makes sense. And there will be moments wherein the doctors don't have to eyeball their patients because they rely on what you said, because you have already built up your credibility that whatever you said, that you could act as their eyes and ears. Building that up, being empowered here takes a lot of courage, and of course, you have to study. Like it's an endless journey. So a lot of people back home, they were asking, is NCLEX hard? Is IELTS hard? When you get here, NCLEX and IELTS will just be the first examination you're going to take. When you get here, there will be endless examination until you retire, I suppose. So you have to make sure that you are used to taking examinations. You have to make sure that you set your mind to learn a long deal. And then here we have a lot of opportunities, because back home in the Philippines, you only have Master of Arts in Nursing. Here, you have a lot of path goals. Like right now, I'm taking nursing informatics right now because of what the things are going on. I'm looking for a thing that could make me work at home and not just work there in the hospital. So you see, there are a lot of career pathways available for us nurses here in comparison with what we have back home.
Yeah.
So here you have a lot of opportunities.
And Jean, I'm sure you would agree with that, right? There's just so many more opportunities here that you can experience in the US than you can really anywhere in the world.
Yes, I firmly agree. If you're working, especially if you're working in a critical care area in ICU, you have, you need to learn, like, you need to be, you ready yourself that you have to learn a lot, because every day the doctors in the ICU trusted you and they rely on you. You have to know your patients also, their conditions from head to toe every day. So whatever your assessment is, they will also rely on you and they will ask you everything.
Yeah. And that really takes time to be able to get used to this different way of doing things. Correct. So
and you
what
will
would
come
you
to that point. I'm sorry. And then you will come to that point wherein when the doctor gives out orders, and because you know your patients, even the height and weight, and they're doing their computations in their head, and you're doing computations inside your head, you're gonna say, wait, that doesn't sound right. And you could actually call them and say, John, can you please reconsider that order? Why? I just would want you to reconsider that because the height and the weight is like this. And then they would do the recompilation. Oh, you know what, Brian? Yeah, that makes sense. So you know, you could call each other out respectfully because unlike with my experience in my country, when you try to call the residents, when you try to call their attention,
Marvin's laughing.
you know what, doctor so and so and so, I think there's something wrong. Wow, what's wrong with that? I mean, they get angry with you if they get called on. I mean, you know, you're not compete because back home this is my own experience. Okay, back home it's like it's a competition. No, when you're here, it's not a competition. Your focus is your patient. So whatever is good for the patient, that is the paramount of everything that you're doing here. So if someone makes a mistake, you watch each other's backs and say, wait a minute, I think there's something that needs to be reconsidered. And they listen.
Yeah.
But for you to have that credibility that people will listen to you, you need to uplift yourself as well.
Yes.
So when you get here, you need to really study, read, and be empowered. So, you know, just building up your credibility. It takes time.
Yes.
Of course. It takes a while.
I have to agree with Sir Brian about in the Philippines, because I remember one incident when I was a clinical instructor in one of the emergency departments. So I was telling this doctor, like, Doc, can you please check on your orders because it seems that something might not be correct. But you know, the answer that I got from that doctor, who's a doctor here, by the way? I said, like, Doc, I'm just here to, and then later on, it injured the patient, and then they were trying to whitewash, and then they did investigation, and then I don't know what happened next because like that the patient went to the floor. But here, as what Sir Brian said, you need to equip yourself with knowledge. I mean, learning is a continuous process. So when I was here in the US, I started to be inspired with some of my educators, like, hey, why are they like abreast? Like, wow, their brains are so big that they can actually absorb all the information. What's their expertise and all that? So I learned the importance and significance of certifications. So I tried my first certification, and then 5 certifications after, I tend to realize now it's not just like putting those credentials behind your name. It is reassuring your patient that you are providing the best care possible and or for the best outcome. And then again, we're not competing here with the doctors because right now I am here in a teaching facility. It's a university facility, so we have residents. So it's learning and sharing of ideas. It's not competing with each other. So if there are things that needs to be corrected, it should be in close loop communication and all those stuff. We are there as a team treating the patient for maximum or better outcome. So I have to agree with Sir Brian. That experience like relived in me, especially when that stare, when the doctor said, who's the doctor here anyway? So, and the doctor said, you are a clinical instructor only. I said, okay, hands off. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the message that's coming across clearly is the word team.
Yes.
Is that here, everybody is working as a team to find the best clinical outcomes for the patient. And one of the nurses that I was talking to last week said she was newly arrived in the US, and she said to me, when you come to the US, you have to bring your A game.
Yes.
And I was like, yes, that kind of like sums it up, because not only is it the knowledge, but it's also the confidence to share that with the rest of the team, the doctors, the other nurses that you're working with, etc.
Agree.
We are out of time, and we haven't even got through all of our questions. So I'm just going to carry on for a little bit because I know that Brian and Marvin and Jean have a lot to share. So Brian and Marvin, when you came to the US, and I'm just looking here, we're getting so many wonderful comments. We've got Fel is watching, Race is watching from Riyadh, Angie's watching, Joy is watching, Ra is watching, Cheryl is watching, Paolo is saying, wow. Renelle is watching, Reggie, Shilani, well done. Kin is watching from Saudi Arabia. Edmund, agree. Justin, such a funny story. I think that was the Dr. Pepper story, Marvin.
Yes.
June Marie, Frederick is watching from Ohio. Justin, thanks for sharing the story. Oh, Dr. Pepper went down well, Marvin. We're getting a lot of comments about Dr. Pepper.
Just like Dr. Pepper.
first time, Angie's saying that's the first time I've heard about Dr. Pepper. Everyone will remember this now.
I know.
Quinn, hi, Sir Brian.
A lot of people.
Daniel, love the doctor's story. love the Dr. Pepper story. Listening. Sol is listening. Chris is listening. Ra, Kin, Ra. Wow, we've got a lot of people watching from all over. And so wonderful to see everybody here from all over the world, sharing their stories, uplifting each other. Thank you, Brian, Marvin, and Jean for doing so. So the next question, I'm just going to carry on for a little longer because I know that everybody is really enjoying this talk, and I think it's just so worthwhile. Brian and Marvin, if you want to maybe share, when you came to the US, obviously it was, you know, arriving here is very exciting. As you put your feet down on that ground, on the tarmac, you get off the plane and you arrive, is just one of the best days. And I know, Jean, you can so relate to that. I remember that day well. What would you say is the biggest challenges that you experienced when you came here, and how did you overcome it? Marvin, if you want to go first.
Okay. So the biggest challenges that I experienced when I came here is, there's a lot, to be honest. So I think number one is driving.
Got his notes.
I got notes because I tend to explain it. Like, so the first one is driving. So I don't usually drive in the Philippines because I love to commute. And also in the Middle East, our accommodation is like 1 block away to the hospital. So driving was a challenge for me. So good thing that the Filipino community in that particular area taught us like how to drive. So some of them were like reviewers. So, and then they taught us like the process of getting the license, how to ace your exam, and also the practical driving, thank God. And also by the time I had an accident, they were there for me. Second challenge that I really don't understand initially was taxes. So I don't know why is the price when you go to the teller, why is it being added with a certain price, and why is the state different from a different one? So those things, I mean, thank God, we have nurses from the area who are now working as an accountant, explain everything to us. And also, the last important thing that I think one of the challenge is legalities. Always, always, always document everything. So before in the Philippines, like I just assume everything and write it in a beautiful statement and all that. But here, to be honest with you, I was called to court because of a certain patient, because this patient committed a crime and my documentation was there. So good thing, thank God, my documentation was superb. And then I was there in court, like trying to give my statements and how they did this and everything like that. And then eventually, thank God they helped me. And then those so far the greatest challenge. But I think one of the solutions that we had during this cultural problem or issues is that our previous hospital had this education program called acculturation. It's an 11-week program. Every Tuesday we attended. They invite some Filipino leaders from that particular community because it is their first time that the hospital invited 33 nurses from the Philippines to work in there. So we're kind of the minority, but we never felt different. They're so warm, accommodating. And I thank the hospital because they bought our contract from our agency within 18 months. So we were very, very happy with that. I thought it was just like a fairy tale dream, but it became true. Now, again, there's a lot of like challenges that we are facing here, but I am thankful to Lefora for existing because like we can share our experiences, we can pay it forward, and then I felt the pain and the suffering of nurses in the Philippines asking this question. I know some questions might be the same all throughout, but I just answer it the best way I can because like I also felt them when I was like there in the Philippines. So I think those were my challenges and the solutions that I think that based for my 6 years here in the US.
Okay. And that's I think also very common challenges that many people experience, like understanding the taxes and understanding like how you build your credit history.
Yes, exactly.
What is credit history? You know, there's a lot of things about the financial side that are very confusing, even to Americans. And even Jean, I mean, you've been here for how many years?
14 years.
14
Wow.
years. I mean, isn't it still confusing to a large extent, some of the financial things,
Oh, I don't do
taxes
it
and
myself.
401ks and things like that?
I don't do it myself. I have my accountant from the very first year that I came here. So it's my accountant who did everything. I don't want to go to, I don't want to be, to go, what do you call that, to be audited. So I trust my accountant.
And that's really good advice, is to find an expert who can help you. And
Yeah.
as Marvin says, I think Lafora is a wonderful forum, and doing the Lafora talk show is a wonderful way of educating people, because knowledge is power. The more you know and understand, the better you can prepare yourself. Brian, what were some of the biggest challenges that you experienced, and how did you overcome them?
Well, first of all, I had a hard time coming here because it was a hurricane when I came here. So I got
wow.
I got stranded in LA, I got stranded in Dallas, and got stranded in Midland. So I was flying for 48 hours. Now, once I got here, I never thought that I'll be thrown in the middle of the desert. So that's also the second challenge, because I'm working in one of the rural areas here. It's like the county that I'm in right now, we have 5,000 population. So I was able to, so right now I am lucky enough to work in 4 different facilities, and each of those facilities only have less than 1,000 population. So it's kind of it's surreal, because it's different back home in the Philippines. Everywhere is crowded. Even if you go to the provinces, it's still crowded. Here, you need to have a vehicle. Like a car here is not luxury. Back home in the Philippines, when you have a car or whatever, it's a luxury. We have to admit it, because we have a lot of public transportation available in the Philippines. Having a car is a luxury. Here, it's a need. And that's one of the hardest things. That's one of the hardships that I got, because I need to have a car, because the nearest grocery is 50 miles away from where I live. And that's the grocery. The nearest fast food. Yeah, the nearest fast food is 60 miles away from this.
Wow.
So if I bring this laptop around, you won't see anything. Like this. This is one of the most beautiful things around here, where I am. So I need to have a car. That's why having credit, and don't have a credit history, because having a credit history is something that I don't know. Even in Ireland, we don't have something like that. So here, having a credit history is something that all of us needs to study. And I think it's available in YouTube. It's available everywhere to all of people watching this. Type in credit history so you would understand what it is, because it's very important here for you to get a loan, for you to even open an account, everything. It's how they judge people. They don't judge people with how much you have in your bank. They judge you with how good you are in paying back. Because I think this country is made up of credit. That's why, this pandemic thing, a lot of people went crazy. Because why? And most of them don't have assets. Most of them don't have bank accounts. Most of us here have credit. So I'm only here for more than a year. And my credit is only on top of my head. That's the thing. So credit history is really, really important. Now, luckily, I met some very, very, very good people who helped me in getting my car. So there were really good people who co-signed my car with me. So I was able to get it for 1.9%, which won't be possible for me doing alone. And then I met some good people who audit my tax as well, and they're all Filipinos. So, this time in age 2020, there will be a lot of professional Filipinos here that you guys could talk to. And I was really, really lucky to be able to come across to them. So a lot of people would help you. But, just like nursing, attitude, skills, knowledge, your attitude must be, must be good. All of those evil thoughts, all of those evil deeds that you did back home, leave them. Because in here, you're building a new life. I don't care what you did before. We don't care what you did before. If you killed somebody before, actually, we don't care. As long as when you get here, put your best foot forward. And a lot of people would help you.
I love that, Ron. I love that. Put your best foot forward, and we have to help each other, right? That's what the Lafora talk show is all about. Wow.
A lot of us would gladly help you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much to Brian, Marvin, and Jean for sharing your wonderful, inspiring, encouraging stories. We really, really appreciate that. And we're so grateful for the time that you've spent with us. The one thing that I would just ask to everybody who's watching, and I know we have so many people sending hearts, so grateful for this, for the Lafora Talk Show and for sharing your story. So Jeffrey, B, Maricor, Jay, they're all tagging people, Bernard, Chris, Amor, everybody who's watching. What we ask of you is two things. One is to pay it forward. In the same way that Jean and Marvin and Brian are paying it forward to you, that they are trying to help you and to serve you, please pay it forward and share the Lafora Talk Show with your friends, with your colleagues, with your relatives, so that we can share this information and we can make sure that everybody feels inspired and uplifted and informed. The other thing that we also ask is just the respect. Please do not inundate Brian, Jean, and Marvin with direct messages. They're very helpful, they're very kind, but we want to be respectful of their time. If you have specific questions, please put them into the chat, because the whole team have agreed to answer any questions that you have in the chat box. So if you have specific questions for everybody who's been on the panel today, please put that into the chat, and please do not direct message, because, you know, as I said, we just want to be respectful of everybody's time and maintain that. So with that said, I want to thank you. Thank you, Marvin.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
for having
Jean.
us.
Thank you,
for
Brian.
having us. Thank you.
It was a pleasure getting to know you. Thank you
Thank you.
for sharing your stories. And we hope that this has helped many people. We know that this has helped many people, and continue to pay it forward.
Will do.
Thank you,
so much.
everybody. Stay safe.
Bye.
Stay safe.